So all eyes are on Nintendo for tomorrow, and that is specifically because they are holding their next investors briefing. And while you should not expect all of the biggest announcements to take place at any of these events, we do actually have a pretty laid out history of Nintendo either giving us new tidbits of information on upcoming consoles, projects, or at least answering direct questions to investors that sometimes give us an additional peek behind the curtain in terms of what they're planning. But just to get this out of the way entirely right at the beginning, this is a very speculative video based off of what Nintendo has done in the past, a couple murmurings from some industry insider quote unquote talk, and largely this speculation is based around whether or not we will hear Nintendo even mention the word Switch successor and give us a little bit more insight into a loose timeline on what might be planned. I am not expecting a trailer at this point in time. In fact, I think a trailer for the first look at the console seems far more unlikely in 2024 at this point, but you do have to first look at the fact that May 7th was also Nintendo's last financial investors briefing, and this is when they actually went on record and said that they will be making an announcement about the successor to the Nintendo Switch within this fiscal year. So to write off the event entirely and say that nothing of substance will come out of this is a mistake in my opinion, and I want to break down all of the possibilities of what, if anything, we could see Nintendo deliver here in terms of new information tied to their upcoming plans. So we'll get on the same page with all of this. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first start off by talking about what we saw revealed to us from an investor briefing last year around this same time, literally the meeting that they hold towards the end of the year. We learned that The Legend of Zelda will be getting a full-scale live-action movie. This was an announcement tied directly to their investor briefing. We also had an interesting tease happen ahead of time with that, where Dr. Surikan Toto made one of his cryptic tweets, which he has not done many times. In fact, he's only done it twice so far, both teasing some kind of Zelda project. Initially, Z2 2022 was a tease for the release year of the planned original release of Tears of the Kingdom. We, of course, know it got delayed into 2023, but then he did it again last year where he tweeted out ZR 2023, which made people think it was some kind of Zelda remaster. Well, it was Zelda Reveal, and that was the big plan for the movie, is what he was hinting at. Those cryptic tweets are always within a couple weeks of something actually happening officially, and we, of course, have him within a couple weeks posting up Switch 2 in quotation marks, maybe just insinuating that that's for sure the name of the console. And that does actually seem like the most logical name, and it is the name that I hope Nintendo picks, even though I want Super Nintendo Switch for nostalgia reasons. Personally, I get the numbering system. It works. It's very clear. There's no question that it's the successor to the Nintendo Switch, and with the household name that Switch has become during this current generation, it would be kind of silly for Nintendo to ditch that name, especially considering that this console is still going to do fundamentally what you refer to it as a Switch, because it switches between your TV and your handheld gameplay, and we know it's going to be another system that does that. So why would Nintendo ditch the name? You probably wouldn't, and let's hope they've learned their lesson and don't call it the Switch U. So in turn, they would maybe call it the Switch 2. And that's where I want to spend a little bit of time, because I do think something like a name reveal is entirely on the table here. Again, not expecting Nintendo to go live with a first look trailer, but they may say the successor to the Nintendo Switch will be called the Switch 2, and we will have upcoming news surrounding this platform in early next year. Or they may even give us something like a release month where we plan to show off our console early next year and launch in April or launch in May. There is actually a possibility of Nintendo doing that, as they have done that in the past when we only knew to expect the NX, and they actually told us the launch timing of their upcoming console. They also in the past gave the exact release date for the 3DS during an investor briefing. So to say or have the idea and mindset that these investor briefings will just simply deliver nothing in terms of new information, I think is a mistake. Now, manage your expectations, because we might just see Nintendo dance around all the questions if they're not ready to speak on anything. And at that point, we will hear things like, please stay tuned for more news on the Switch successor in upcoming months. And as we've mentioned, we will reveal it within the fiscal year, which ends March 31st, 2025. Like, that is a very real possibility that that's all we get, but we know that Nintendo, in terms of their sales performance so far this year, they have not been pacing to hit their 13.5 million units that they've committed to for the Switch. And of course, the holiday sales season does see a massive swing upwards towards them hitting that number, but they are down significantly from their first investor briefing in terms of where they should be year to date. If you were going to expect those kind of console sales numbers, they know it's going to be a hard goal to hit, and we really don't have any killer pieces of software that's going to go justify a bunch of people going out and buying a Switch for the first time. Super Mario Party Jamboree is probably the closest thing to a massive hit in terms of a sales success that Nintendo has come out with this year, but Mario and Luigi Brothership, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, they're going to be nice 3 to 5 million unit sellers, potentially, maybe even a little bit higher than that over the long term, but not something that you would see a significant spike in overall console sales. And this is what investors actually care about. How is Nintendo using these funds to have a successful year overall? And Furukawa has made it very clear in the past that this is a transition year to their next gen console, and even if it means at the cost of some short-term profit loss, that they will focus and do everything they need to do to gear up a successful launch of their next generation. And so this topic, Switch 2 and Switch successor, is going to come up multiple times at this presentation, no doubt. Not to mention the fact that during every one of Nintendo's presentations that they've put on since they announced that they would be making an announcement for the successor has included that little disclaimer at the bottom that says, please note there will be no mention of the Nintendo Switch successor during this presentation or either of these presentations, like we saw them do with the Museum Direct, where it's like, okay, obviously they're not going to be revealing a Switch 2 during that time. They made that mention then. They also did it during the partner showcase in Indie World. Like, Nintendo's had to go out of their way to bring up this console so many times now themselves, just because they put out that public statement that they would be making an announcement within this fiscal year. So I think where my expectations are at right now personally is, best case scenario, we get an official name. We maybe even get the launch month of the console, or at least when Nintendo plans to do a reveal event, kind of similar to what we saw them do like in a bigger in-depth type of presentation with the Switch 1, where they held that, I believe, in January of 2017. We could get the announcement of something like that, but again, I'm not expecting to wake up tomorrow morning to a first look trailer. And just to get on the same page with when this news and information will go down, we're expecting it to actually hit overnight tonight. There will always be initial people reporting on it, and this is a fair point to be aware of. There's initial translations that come out that sometimes are just off a little bit, a word or two, or the meaning of how something was phrased, and sometimes until that official transcript comes out, which will be days later, there is plenty of room for misinterpretation online. It's happened many times in the past, so be aware of headlines and different things you see floating around tomorrow. In terms of Furukawa said exactly this, when the official translation comes out, it may be slightly off from that, but there are a number of reliable names out there that typically do a good job with relaying anything and the core messaging around it pretty quickly after this stuff goes live. So we should know something tomorrow. There may even be some official corporate tweet from Nintendo's main Japanese account where they make some kind of official comment or statement on the Switch 2. That's also a best case scenario type of situation, and I will be obviously watching for that, as well as that's where, you know, we had that middle of the night tweet where they said they're going to reveal the successor to Nintendo Switch back on May 7th, and then just kind of some bonus information to go over. Of course, we know Nintendo's release schedule right now, like they have Mario and Luigi Brothership right around the corner. Fun, controversial reviews going live on that right now, but other than IGN, I'm not seeing too much controversy around it. It seems like it's actually a solid entry in the Mario RPG series, but there are some strong takes on it, and that's really going to close out, you know, Nintendo's first party lineup for 2024. And then of course we have some ports and remaster projects to look forward to, as far as Donkey Kong Country Returns HD out in January. I'm sure they will mention Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition recently being revealed as their March 2025 game. And while we know Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Pokemon Legends ZA is in the pipeline, it's not entirely clear on when those will come out, although due to the Giga leak, we have a loose estimation of kind of like a first half, maybe April to July timeframe potentially for that game. If internally it hasn't changed, that seems to be a loose launch timeline for what's been uncovered as part of those leaks. And they may mention some of their upcoming, like we have more software related announcements to communicate and stay tuned next year, I mean, we should hopefully see them get back on that 3 mainline directs a year cadence by next year. And I'm personally expecting some kind of February direct to take place, although it is hard to say with us being in this hardware transition. Until Nintendo really gets their next console out, it could be kind of weird and wonky for a while with their presentations and what kind of presentations they actually do. So all that to say, lots of exciting possibilities floating around at Nintendo for tomorrow, and I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below about if you think we'll see anything substantial from Furukawa at this investors briefing and the plans for Switch 2. Do you think we're going to get some kind of official name reveal or even kind of a loose launch timeline, or do you think this is something that will be tight-lipped still? Nintendo's going to dance around it and do everything except give us direct answers on the next console. And now that we're officially in November without any kind of first look trailer going live, do you think there's any shot for a first half console launch in 2025, or do you think this is indeed saved for the fall or even holiday season next year in 2025 for the ultimate launch? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.